This is actually my first tutorial video under my new brand name, and I'm so excited to share it with you guys. Hi fashion lovers, you're welcome to another tutorial video on my channel. I know some of you still know me as Queen Bee Clothings, but I now go by the name Blepel. So on Instagram and everywhere else you'll find me as Blepel, but on YouTube I'll be using Blepel Stitch because this is where I share my stitching and my sewing tutorials with you. So in today's tutorial, I'll be sharing with you the process of the cutting and sewing of this halter neck waist jacket and short you see me putting on. It was inspired by this outfit on the left screen, so I just went extra by sewing a short to pair with the jacket, and it was made out of the Ankara patch fabric we made in our last tutorial. And I styled this outfit in 6 different ways, that's if you're watching the screen right now. And in this tutorial, we'll be focusing on the halter neck jacket first, and in my next tutorial, we'll be learning how to cut out the short. Without wasting much of our time, let's get into the tutorial. Like I said before, this is the Ankara patch fabric we'll be using to make the jacket, which was a project we did in our last tutorial video. So I'll start by drafting on my pattern paper, and I'm just marking 1 inch downward from the beginning of the paper to mark out my starting point. So after marking the 1 inch downward, I'll use my ruler and my pencil to connect it as an horizontal straight line. On the vertical part of the paper, I'll also mark 1 inch like this for my starting point at that side as well. Now the reason I'm doing this is because the jacket is going to be having a button, and the 1 inch will also serve as the button allowance. So just do the same thing I'm doing right now. Please bear with me guys, some of the pencil lines may not be too visible in this video because my marker wasn't available during filming, but I'll make sure future tutorials are clearer. Thanks for understanding. So the next thing I'll do now is to mark out my bust point, which is 12 inches from the shoulder, and my waistline, which is 17 inches, and my hip line, which is 24 inches. After making a point right on the bust line, waistline and the hip line, I'll be using those points to make an horizontal straight line before applying the other measurement to it, just as you see me doing in the video. So I'll just label the first line as the bust point, the second line as the waistline, and the third line as the hip line. I'm sorry guys, this pencil is not really visible because my marker was not available at the moment, so please bear with me. So the next thing I'll now go ahead to do is to come up to the upper part of the pattern paper and mark my shoulder measurement, half of my shoulder measurement. My full shoulder measurement is 15 inches, so 15 divided by 2 is 7.5. so I'll be starting my measurement from this line on the vertical part of the paper. So that is where I'll be starting all my measurement from. So I'll be marking 7.5 inches right there for my shoulder measurements, and I will also mark 3 inches like this for the neck width and 3 inches for the neck depth. So that is the standard neck measurement for any hard dot. So I'll be connecting the 2 points together using my French curve, just as you see me doing in the video. The next thing I went ahead to do is to come down from the shoulder measurement by 1 inch. The 1 inch I'm coming down by will serve as this shoulder slant, and I'll be connecting it into the neck width that I marked earlier, just as you see me doing in the video. Then the next thing I'll now go ahead to do is to come down to mark my armhole depth. So to get your armhole depth, you can simply divide your bust measurement by 6 and add 1.5 inches to it, and mine is 7.5 inches. Or you can simply measure around your armpit area, and whatever you get there, divide it by 2 to mark your armhole depth. And I will mark a line right there, which is also going to serve as the chest line. The next thing is to measure what I have on the shoulder, and whatever measurement I have right there, I'll be placing it on the chest line. So I have 7.5 inches for my half shoulder measurement, and I will mark 7.5 inches on the chest line as well, and connect the 2 points together as a straight line. Like I said before, this line right here is the chest line, so I'll just label it chest line. And the next thing I'll do right now is to divide the armhole depth by 2 and make a point right there. So from that point, I'll be coming in by half an inch. I'll come down to the chest line and mark quarter of my bust measurement, which is also the same as your bust measurement divided by 4. So I'll be connecting the 3 points together to form my armhole curve. The next thing is to mark the nipple to nipple measurement on the bust point, waistline and the hip line as well. So my nipple to nipple measurement is 3.5 inches. So I'll be marking it all the way from the bust point down to the hip line. So I'll just connect the point together to form a straight line. So I'll be coming down on the waistline and I'll be marking my dart intake, which is ½ inch on both sides of the nipple to nipple line. Did you see what I did there? So I'll be connecting it into the bust point like this, and I'll also be connecting it into the hip line, just as you see me doing in the video. So I'll just go ahead to shade in between the darts because that part won't be useful at the end of the day. For this waistcoat, we'll be using an armhole dart. Now to form the armhole dart, I'll connect a line from the middle of the armhole and curve it gently into the bust point, which lies along the nipple to nipple line, just as you see me doing in the video. So this gives the dart shape for better fitting. So from that point where the neck width ends, I'll mark about 1.7 inches outward to create another shoulder line. Then from the armhole depth, I'll come down by ½ an inch to form another armhole depth. So basically we're just trying to form the outer neckline for this waistcoat. So on the new armhole depth line, I'll be transferring my bust measurement on that line, and I'll be connecting from the new shoulder to the new armhole depth I just marked. I guess that makes sense. If you're watching the video, you will understand what I'm trying to explain. All I'm doing is just to create the outer neck effect. So I'll be using my curved ruler to connect the 2 points together from the new armhole line all the way to the new shoulder line. So this line I'm marking right now will be the new armhole line. So the next step is to create a dart on the new armhole line. So I'll take 0.5 inches on both sides of the line and I will connect it straight down to the bust point using my curved ruler. Now the reason I'm adding a dart to the new armhole is to create a contour around the bust area so that the fabric won't just sit flat on the chest when you wear the jacket, and it will give space for the boobs to sit. So this is what I have here after taking the dart. Then I'll just go ahead to measure what I have on the 2 dart line I just created. So I'll just go ahead and measure from the beginning of the dart into the bust line, and whatever I have there, I'll keep the measurement. I have 6 inches right there, and I'll measure the second one, and I have 6.6 inches. So I'll be adding the remaining 0.6 inches on the shorter one. I'll be extending the line forward by 0.6 inches, and I'll be using my curved ruler to connect the dots into the dart line, just as you see me doing in the video. So after connecting it, I'll be connecting that point down to the armhole. So this one will now be my new armhole line. So I'll be using my curved ruler to connect it together like this. Then I'll just go ahead and shade out the parts that are not useful. Then the next thing is to mark my round bodice measurement. So on the bust point, I'll be marking my round bust measurement divided by 4 right there. On the waistline as well, I'll be marking my round waist measurement divided by 4 and place the 1 inch dart. I'll also go down to the hip line and mark my round hip measurement divided by 4. Then I'll connect all the points that I mark right there to form my body shape. So guys, if you look at the beginning of this video, you will see that the neckline is actually a bit low. Now to mark my new neckline, I'll place the tape at the shoulder point and I'll be marking 8.5 inches downwards. If you want yours to be lower than that, you can mark 9, and if you want it to cover your cleavage fully, you can mark 7. So I'm just going to extend the 8.5 inches into the buttonhole allowance, and from the neck width, I'll be using my curved ruler to connect it gently down to the 8.5 inches I just finished marking. I guess that makes sense. After marking the neckline, the next thing now is to extend the waistline forward into the allowance, and from that waistline, I'll be going down by 2.5 inches. So I want my own jacket to stop right on my waist. That's why I marked 2.5 inches. But if you want yours to go lower than that, you can mark 3 or any amount you wish to add to it. So on the nipple to nipple line, I'll be marking down 5.5 inches, and on the side line, I'll mark the same thing I marked on the button allowance right there, which is 2.5, and I'll be connecting the 3 dots together to form an angle. So this is the angle effect of the jacket I am making right now. So I'm just marking the points where I'll be placing the button. And after that, I'll just go ahead to use my pencil to shade out the lines that I'll be cutting out, because like I said earlier, this pencil is not really visible, so I'll just be using the pencil to shade out the lines I'll be cutting out. So guys, this is what I have after shading it out. You can see that it is now more visible and it's already giving the jacket shape. Now the next thing is to create a side dart. So from the bust point, I'll be coming down by 2 inches and I'll be marking it on the line of the side, and I'll be connecting that 2 inches point into the bust point of the nipple to nipple line. This dart we are marking is necessary because the front measurement and the back measurement cannot be the same because of the presence of the bust at the front. So I'm just shading out the middle of the dart before I proceed to cut it out. But for now, I'll set the front pattern aside and we'll move on to drafting the back. Just like we did for the front, we'll be marking our starting point at the upper part of our paper using 1 inch. So now we're not going to be marking any starting point at the side because the back will not be carrying a button, so there is no need for that. So from the shoulder line, which is also the starting point, I'll be marking my bust point, which is 12 inches, and I'll also mark the back waistline, which will be 15 inches. Now the actual waistline is 17 inches, but since we've already taken 2 inches from the front dart, we'll also remove that 2 inches from the back to balance it. That's why the waistline is 15 inches at the back. So after marking the bust line and the waistline, I'll also mark the hip line, which is 24 inches, and I'll make an horizontal straight line right there as well. So basically we're repeating the same process we did for the front, but there'll just be a slight difference for the back. And I'll just go ahead to label the lines: bust line, waistline, hip line, just like I did for the front. On the starting point, I'll be marking half of my shoulder measurement, which is 7.5 inches. Then from that point, I'll come down by 1 inch for my shoulder slant. From the shoulder slant point, I'll mark down 7.5 inches for the armhole depth. And at that 7.5 inches point, I'll draw a straight line across, and that line will serve as the back chest line. So at the top of the paper on the starting line, I'll mark 3 inches for the neck width, and from that point, I'll draw a straight line down to meet the shoulder slant. Then for the neck depth, I'll mark 1.5 inches down from the starting point. Then from that point, I'll connect it to the neck width using my curve ruler to form the round neckline for the back. So after drawing the neckline, I'll place my half shoulder measurement on the chest line, and I'll connect it to the shoulder slant to form the armhole depth line. Then I'll divide that line by 2 and mark the midpoint. And on the chest line, I'll mark quarter of my bust measurement. Then finally, I'll connect the 2 points together to form my armhole curve for the back. So on the vertical side of the paper, I'll mark half of my nipple to nipple measurement, which is 3.5 inches. So I'll just mark it across the chest line, bust line, waistline, and hip line, just like I did for the front. Then I'm going to be connecting the points to form a straight vertical line. So on the waistline, I'll be marking half an inch on both sides of the nipple to nipple line for my darts. And from the waistline again, I'll measure 6 inches downward and mark the point on the nipple to nipple line. Then I'll connect the dart into the 6-inch point that I marked on the nipple to nipple line. And I'll also connect them upward into the chest line. And I'll go ahead to label the line chest line. So from the shoulder line, I'll measure down 9.5 inches for where I want the back line to start. And after marking it, I notice it falls about 1 inch below the original neckline. So I'm just marking 1 inch across, and I'll be using those points to make an horizontal straight line to form the new chest line for the back. You can choose to go higher or lower depending on your style, but I want mine to be low, so I'm marking 9.5 inches. Then I'll go ahead to cancel the original chest line because it's no longer needed. Now to tighten the upper part of the back chest line, I'll go out by about 0.2 inches on both sides of the dart line. Then I'll connect those points down to the waistline where the dart starts. So this adjustment will help to tighten the upper back area for better fitting. After that, I'll go to the waistline and measure 2 inches downward. Now this is the original length of the back because we added 2 inches to the front length, so we'll be doing the same thing to the back as well to keep it balanced. The next thing is to apply all my body's measurements on the side. So on the waistline, I'll mark quarter of my waist measurement, then I'll add the dart intake, and I'll also do the same thing for the bust point as well, and I'll be connecting all the points together to form my body shape. Then I'll just go ahead to shade out the lines to make it more visible before cutting it out. Now to avoid confusion, I'll label this part as the center back and the other part as the side back. I'll also add an arrow to direct us on how we'll be joining it together. And that is all for the drafting of the back. So I'll just cut through all these lines you see me cutting, and that is how you should cut yours as well. So here is what I have after cutting it out. I'll be keeping the upper back piece, which is the yoke, because I'll be adding the neckline to the front to create the halter neck effect. Now I'll be bringing out my front pattern, and this is the yoke here that I explained earlier, and I'll just go ahead to trim out the neckline, the shoulder slant, and the armhole as well, so it's going to be easy for me to cut. Then I'll just be placing it on the front neckline like this, and I'll be using my sellotape to gum that part. So basically I'm using the back neckline to complete the front. So to mark out the neckline, this is what I did. I measured the length of the front shoulder starting from the neck width. Then the measurement I got there is what I will use to mark out the back neckline. So I'll just connect it smoothly to the back to form a curve. And this is how to cut out the halter neckline for this waistcoat. So I'll just go ahead to cut it out carefully. because of the side that I'll be making some adjustments on the side, so I'll leave that side for now and cut out the remaining part. So I'll just go ahead to cut the bust point line like this, and I'll be using it to cover the dart just like the way you see me doing, and I'll be using my sellotape to tape it down. So guys, if you watch closely, you will see that the line is no more equal at the side, so I'll just be using my ruler to blend the line before cutting everything out, just like the way you see me doing in the video. So this is what I have after cutting it out, and I'll just go ahead to label this part as center front and this other part as side front, and I'll also use an arrow to indicate it just like I did for the back. Now I'll be placing it on my fabric, and I'll be adding all the allowance on the fabric since I didn't add any allowance to the pattern paper while drafting. Yeah, I have the back pattern and the front pattern as well, so I'll just place it on my fabric and cut it out, adding my allowance to the sides. So here is what I have after cutting it out, and I also cut out the lining piece. I left 1.5 inch allowance at the side and 0.5 at the other sides. So for the smaller part of the back, which is the center back, I cut it on fold, and I'm just placing it right beside each other to see how I'll be joining it. So I'll just keep it aside for now and work on the front piece. Since this is a patch fabric, the wrong side is rough, so I'll be gumming a paper stay on the fabric to make it smooth and easy to sew. But before that, I'll be extending the waistline from the pattern paper onto the fabric using my chalk on both the side front and the center front. Then I will notch those chalk marks with my scissors. So this notch I am making must align when we are joining, and they will serve as a guide to make sure everything matches perfectly. But before that, I'll be gumming my paper stay on the actual fabric to cover the roughness, so it's going to be easy for me to sew. Now if you watch closely, you will see that I left 1.5 inch allowance at the halter neckline at the center front. Make sure you do the same as well. So here is what I have after gumming my paper stay to the fabric, and you can see that I've gone ahead to notch the waistline, and I'm just arranging it on the table the way it will be joined. So I'll be joining one center front to one side front, then I'll pin it all around, making sure that the notch area at the waistline aligns. Then I'll start by pinning from the bottom upwards, just as you see me doing in the video. Then after pinning it, I'll sew along that line with half an inch. So I'm using my chalk to mark half an inch from the bottom all the way to the top. This line will serve as my stitching guide, so when I sew, I'll simply follow along that chalk line. So I'll repeat the same process for the other parts and also the lining. Remember, whatever you do to the fabric, you should also do the same on the lining. By the way guys, I've noticed I talk a little bit too fast when I'm explaining things. It's not like I'm rushing, but that's just the way I am sometimes. I'll try to slow down a little so everybody can go along with the tutorial. So guys, I've gone ahead to do the same thing to the other part as well, and the next thing I'll do is to notch around this part that I just finished sewing, so it's going to relax. So after notching it, I'll use my pressing iron to press the same allowance open, just like you see me doing in the video. Then I'm also going to repeat the same process for the other part as well. After ironing the front piece, I'm moving on to the back. Now this is the center back, and I will be placing the two side back on it, making sure the right sides are facing each other. Then I will pin them in place and go ahead and stitch it. Then after doing that, I'll also repeat the same thing for the lining piece as well, and once that is stitched, both the fabric and the lining will be ready for the next step. This is what I have after stitching. You can see how neat both the lining and the Ankara fabric is looking. I've also gone ahead to stitch the lining for the front piece. Now the next step is to join everything together. So guys, since I want a really neat finishing at the inside and at the outside, I won't be weaving any edge or leaving any rough parts. So here is how I'm going to be joining it. I'll first join the front and back Ankara fabric together, and I will also join the front and back lining together separately. Once that is done, I will now join the lining and the Ankara together to finish it off neatly. So now I'll place the back on the front like this. Now to get your round body's measurement on it, there are two easy methods you can use. The first method is measure what you already have on the back, then whatever it gives you, subtract half of your round body's measurement from it, then the allowance that is left, just divide it by 2 and mark it on both sides. That way you'll get your correct body's measurement without stressing yourself. But if that feels a little confusing, here is another simple method you can use. Just locate the midpoint of the center back, then from there mark quarter of your body's measurement across. That will also give you your accurate body's measurement. So after marking mine, I will go ahead and pin it down, then stitch it along the line that I marked. And of course, I'll also repeat the same thing for the lining as well. So here is what I have after joining everything together, and you can see how neat it is looking already. And I also did the same thing for the lining as well. So now I'll just be placing my lining on top of the Ankara piece, just like the way you see me doing, and I'll be using my office pin to pin it all around. So guys, when pinning everything together, just make sure the joining lines on the Ankara and the lining matches, so it will come out neat at the end of the day. Once everything is pinned together, we'll move on to stitching. So we're going to be starting our stitching from the neckline, just like the way you see me demonstrating in the video. I'm just going to be stitching it from the beginning to the end of where the buttonhole is going to stop. Then after doing that, I'll be moving on to the upper part of this outer neck, just like the way you see me illustrating. So I'm not going to be stitching from the beginning. I'll be leaving about 1.5 inches before stitching it all the way down to the other end, and I'll also be leaving 1.5 inches at the other end as well, and end my stitch right there. So for now, we are not touching the base of the jacket. We are only stitching the neckline down to the buttonhole, both on the inner and at the outer part. Just like I explained earlier, I went down by 1.5 inches and I started my stitch from there. Then I stitched it all the way from that point to the other end. So I also did the same thing to the other side as well. And for the upper part, I also did the same thing for that part as well. So the only part I did not stitch is the bottom of the jacket, which is also the base of the jacket. And the next thing now is to trim out the excess and turn it inside out, and also use my pressing iron to press it to make it neat. So I'm not going to be trimming out this part that I am notching right now because I have to notch it. So you should just do the same thing for yours as well. I'll just go ahead to notch it all around and turn it inside out before ironing. Here is what I have after ironing it, and you can see how neat and beautiful it is looking at the inside and outside already. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm joining this in a way that there won't be any rough edges or weaving. So now to finish the down part of the jacket, I'll be flipping it over like this, and I'll be sandwiching the outer neckline in between the lining and the Ankara fabric. So I'll just go ahead to stitch the down parts all the way from this point down to the other end. So now to turn it inside out, I'll be opening a small part of the line using my seam ripper to loosen it up a little bit, because by the time I go ahead to stitch the down part of the jacket, there won't be any part where I'll be turning it inside out. So that is why I am just loosening up some part of the lining to enable us turn it inside out at the end of the day. I've gone ahead to close up the down part, and the next thing now is to bring everything out through that small space I left on the lining allowance. But before that, I'll just go ahead to trim out the excess of the down part, so to enable it to relax properly when I turn it inside out. So just do the same thing to yours as well, and don't forget to notch every part as well. Guys, we've gotten to the most exciting part of this video because this jacket is almost ready. So the next thing we are going to do is to join the outer neck together. So I'm just going to be placing it like this, making sure the fabric is facing fabric and lining is facing lining, just like the way you see me doing in the video. And I'm just going to be stitching it down using my 1.5 inches allowance. Then after stitching it down, I'll bring it back and show you guys what I have, and I'll be showing you what I'll do to it next. So for the sake of transparency, after I joined the jacket at the outer neck area and I wore it on my body, I noticed that the neckline was a bit low and it was showing too much cleavage. And to fix it at that time, I just used a pin to adjust it on myself, and after adjusting it, I realized that there was too much allowance at that halter neck area. So guys, to correct that, instead of adding 1.5 inches allowance to the halter neck part, don't add any allowance to that part. Just cut it exactly on the pattern paper and use your normal 1-inch allowance to stitch it down when you are joining the halter neck part. So that was what I did, and when I wore it, it was now perfect. So I just went ahead to adjust it, and after adjusting it, I'll be trimming out the excess. Then this is how I'm going to be joining it. I'll be closing it up like this, and I'm just going to be using my sewing machine to stitch it down, just like the way you see me illustrating in the video. So after doing all of that, the next thing is to fix our button and our buttonhole on it, and we are done for the jacket. So for the buttonhole space, you're just going to be marking a point at the starting of the jacket. Then from that point, you go down by 2.5 inches or any inches you are okay with. So that is just the way you'll be marking the buttonhole. So guys, we've actually come to the end of this tutorial, and if you've learned something so far from this video, please do well to hit on the like button and subscribe to my channel. Don't forget to turn on your post notifications so you get notified whenever I post new videos like this. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Bye. I will see you in my next one.